Hi, seventh graders. This is Mrs. Sedlacek, and today I'm going to be taking you through the lesson over annotating as well as connotation. Those are our two big skills we're focusing on today. I'm going to be taking you through the slideshow, and then after that, I'll kind of mention some brief instructions about your assignments that you have for today. So, like I said, annotating is one of the skills for today, and annotating we did mention last week in our lessons, but it's just showing your thinking as you are analyzing poetry. So there are some specific ways we like to look through poems and how we like to mark them to show your thinking clearly. So we like to use the acronym of SWIFT, which you can see on the slide here. It's going upside down though. So the S is down here, going upward should spell out SWIFT. Right? So just briefly, I'm going to tell you what each letter stands for. The T is for techniques. So when you're looking at techniques, we're looking for what form of poetry is the poem. The rhyme scheme, what's the pattern of rhyming? Meter is what's the syllable count? Is there a pattern to that syllable count that is having an effect on the poem? The sound devices, right, to see what kind of effect, again, they're giving to the poem based off of which one they choose. Repetition, again, things that are repeated throughout the poem, right? So then the F stands for figurative language. You would be looking for any type of figurative language and what effect that gives it. The I stands for imagery. This is where you're looking for words or phrases that are appealing to the senses. Word choice would be specifically what type of tone they're trying to get across by the word choice that they're including in the poem. We are going to be talking about connotation after this today, which does relate to this element as well. The S stands for speaker. So on this part, you'd be looking at whose perspective is the poem coming from and what's their overall message that they're trying to get across. Right, and then some other things you should be looking for, as always, is any questions that you have as you read, or anything that might be confusing, words maybe you don't know. And then the TC stands for text connections, which you should already know. So text to world, and text to self. All right, so you are going to be practicing this skill of annotating with the poem The Cremation of Sam McGee today. And we have this on a document for you, which I'll show you in a moment. We also are directing you through your analysis and your annotating or annotations. So you don't necessarily have to go through each step yourself. There will be steps laid out for you and questions that go with it. All right, so we will be looking at, like I said, The Cremation of Sam McGee, which is a narrative poem. And this is also one of the forms we're focusing on today and one of the options for writing your own poem today. So you do need to know what narrative poetry is. Narrative poetry is where you combine fiction and poetry to tell a story. And it says, like short stories, narrative poetry usually includes characters, setting, plot, conflict, and point of view. So, like I said, it's really telling you a story from the beginning to the end. Like other poems, it can use sound devices such as rhythm and rhyme. It can bring out musical qualities of the language by using those. It also can use figurative language, which will help to create memorable images or word pictures. Right now, narrative poetry is well suited to a wide range of stories. For example, it can tell romantic tales about knights and ladies. It can tell about heroic deeds, amazing events, or larger-than-life characters. But in contrast, the form may be used to relate everyday stories about ordinary people. So as you can see, there's lots of different areas that this type of poem can focus on. The poem also will blend elements of fiction and poetry in a memorable way. So it says, as you read this poem today, The Cremation of Sam McGee, you will look for ways in which it blends the elements of narration and poetry, which you have learned both. Okay, so some background before you read the poem, because it is a little bit of a longer poem and there are some things that might be confusing if you don't have background. It says one important element of fiction is setting. In this poem, two men prospect for gold in Canada's Yukon Territory. Located just east of Alaska, where temperatures can reach negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the area long attracted fortune hunters who came for its mineral wealth. Gold was discovered in the Klondike River region in the 1890s, and many people, including poet Robert Service, went to look for it. So, a little bit of background for you. Right now, this assignment is located on 15.1 on Google Classroom. And I'm just going to quickly show you some instructions and then I'll get back to the lesson. All right, let me resize this so you can see it all. All right, so like I said, you're focusing on narrative poems and gives you a little bit more information up here, which I already went through on the slide. Here's the background, which I just went through. And then the directions say you're going to complete each annotation in the column to the right of this poem. Then you're going to answer the analysis questions beneath the table in complete sentences. All right, now you will read through this poem here. And like we've taught you before, we want you to just read the title and through the poem first. And then we want you to go back through the second time and complete these annotations off to the right-hand side. So you read through it, and then as you can see, number 1 is focused on imagery. It says, look at stanza 1. Now over here to the left, we have all the stanzas numbered as you go throughout the poem. Since it's longer, we didn't want you to get tripped up on the number of stanzas there. And then it gives you instructions from there. Anywhere where it has parentheses and tells you, like, identify the sense here, you need to delete those parentheses and put your answer in. Okay, as you can see, there's a few. This one just tells you to do the annotation on the poem. Same here. Okay, and then there's questions down here, 7 through 10 need to be answered in complete sentences. So restating the question and answering in the boxes provided. Okay, so that's the assignment. Going back here to the slideshow of the lesson, you would continue on to the skill of connotation. Now, connotation really has to do with word choice and making sure that you have a clear tone. So as you can see on this slide, we have some examples to start us off. Negative connotation would be words such as skinny, bizarre, domineering. Okay, in the middle, we have words that are neutral or don't have a connotation to them. Thin, unusual, forceful, and then positive. So as you can see and look across, you can see the differences. Slender, extraordinary, assertive. Okay. Now, denotation is the dictionary definition of words, so the literal meaning behind the word. Connotation is different because it's a secondary meaning of a word and it's what shows the feeling and the emotion tied behind it. So the tone, basically. So like you saw in the previous slide, there can be words that have positive, negative, or neutral connotations to them. So on this slideshow here, we have some sets of or pairs of words that have similar denotations or definitions, but they have different connotations to them. So your job is you're going to look through each pair and figure out which one has a negative connotation. So there should be one for each pair. So for example, yank and pull, right? Yank would have a negative connotation behind it. Pull would have a positive connotation, right? So now looking at number 1, would narrow or cramped have more of a negative connotation to it? Okay, I'm going to read through each one and then we'll look through the answers on the next slide. 2, imposing or striking. 3, grunted or murmured. 4, dangled or drooped. 5, stubborn or determined. 6, timid or careful. 7, proud or arrogant. And 8, puzzled or distressed. All right, now hopefully you thought to yourself which one you think has more of a negative connotation, because we're going to check our answers now on the next slide. So this is what you should have seen. So we've got cramped, imposing, grunted, drooped, stubborn, timid, arrogant, and distressed. The words that are in white that are not underlined would have more of the positive connotation for the pair. All right, now these two images on this slide are both Victorian style homes. So in a way, they kind of have the same type of denotation to them. Now, if you were to describe each of these houses to a friend, we want you to think which one would have a description with more of a negative connotation to it. Now, most people would probably say this one up here, the top right, because of the way that it looks, right? If you're thinking about somebody that would want to live in a house, maybe you would like to live in that, but most people that are buying a house are not going to want to buy a house that looks like this. But that goes with what we're doing next. So it says, pretend you are given the job to sell this house with your partner or your group, or if you're at home, you're just going to do this on your own. You're going to describe what your ad might say to give it a positive connotation. So you're pretending that you're creating an advertisement to sell this house. You're like the real estate agent. If you have someone at home, you could talk this out with them real quick. If not, just think to yourself, what might you say in that advertisement to get people to come and look at this house? All right, so it says example, which words give this a positive connotation? So it says looking to buy a new house. Charming vintage Victorian, brimming with character and authentic details, this bargain is a collector's item. If you believe in old-style family values, you'll be proud to own this traditional family house that will increase in value with the years. Now, these are the words that you should have noticed gave it a really positive connotation. Charming, vintage, brimming, character, authentic, bargain, collector's item, old-style family values, traditional family. These are all things that people would like to hear when they're looking for a house, right? So, just by them not seeing the house or seeing the image, you could, based off your word choice, make it sound more positive, even though maybe if they came to see the house, they wouldn't be as positive about it. But this just goes to show words do matter, and they really do have a tone behind them. All right, now we're going to look at two different poems here. They're both titled the same, Orange, right? I'm going to read through each one. As I read through them, you need to be trying to figure out the answers to these questions. The first question is, which line or lines show the denotation in each poem? And the second question is, which version has a negative connotation between number 1 or number 2? And I want you to be able to tell me what led you to think this. So number 1, orange. An orange is a round, juicy citrus fruit with a tough, bright orange rind. The pinch of peeling it sends a spray of juice to assault my eye. As I grip the inflexible skin and try to tear it away, only to have it break off into small pieces. After I pick away the dangling string with a grimace, I plop a section into my mouth. At first, all I can sense is a thick, dry skin. After the edges of my teeth pierce the thick, dry skin with a soft pop, a seed catches a wave of sour juice and launches into my throat. I endure a short, choking attack, all the while trying to keep the orange section in my mouth. Chew, chew, chew. The thick, dry skin until I just give up and swallow it because it won't break apart. And some people think these are delicious. Right, now on to number 2, orange. An orange is a round, juicy citrus fruit with a tough, bright orange rind. As I crack open the skin, I am suddenly outside on a warm summer day, embracing the warmth of sunshine on my face. The fresh, citrusy, bright scent takes me there. A few sparkling drops of juice are lost as they run over my fingers and down my wrists. I can't seem to tear the bright and happy wrapping off fast enough. As I plop that first section into my mouth, I feel the burst. The tender pulp pieces swim over my tongue. It's almost a shame to have to swallow. I pop the sections in one at a time in order to savor, savor, savor. And some people think these aren't delicious. Now, thinking to yourself which line or lines show the denotation in the poem, in each poem, you should have said the first complete line here from the beginning here to the period, okay, on both are the same, and they give the definition of what an orange is. So that's why it's denotation. Now, the second question, which version has a negative connotation to it? You should have said number 1. All right, now there's several things that might have led you to figure this out. It gives more of a negative word choice behind it with the words like pinch, peeling it sends a spray of juice, assault, my eye, inflexible skin, dangling string with a grimace, thick, dry skin, after their teeth pierce the thick, dry skin, a seed catches a wave of sour juice, launches it into their throat, a choking attack, so on. At the end, they also give a big clue because they're saying some people think these are delicious. So meaning they don't really like them. They don't think they're delicious. Now, number 2 is different. It has a positive connotation. It's about the same exact thing. They started off the same way, but because of their word choice, they give it more of a positive tone. So they use words like embracing. They feel like they're out on a warm summer day. Warmth, sunshine, fresh, citrusy, bright, sparkling. Okay, and then towards the end, they say, and some people think these aren't delicious, meaning they think they're delicious and they can't imagine why someone else would not think that. So again, just showing you that based off of what words you choose, it can completely change the tone. All right, now that is the lesson. Okay, I already showed you 16.1, which was the cremation of Sam McGee and the annotations, the analysis questions. Now, the other assignment you have today is 16.2 on Google Classroom, and it is writing your third poem. Now, here are the instructions on the document that's posted for you. You are writing either a narrative or a connotation poem. Those are your 2 choices. You only have to write one, okay? And it says you're going to choose one of those. And one of the themes of poetry that were taught to you last week, so life, nature, love, or death, or a combination of them, you're going to write at least 12 lines, and you're going to use figurative language and sound devices within your poem. Okay? Now, whichever one you choose, we give you some information based off of what you need to have in the structure, and we also linked each example of the poem from the lesson today, so you can go back to those for examples. If you write a narrative poem, it needs to be 12 lines long. If you write a connotation poem, notice it's going to also be 12 lines, but you do have to write 2 poems about your subject, like what was done in Orange. Okay, they had the 2. They had one that was positive, one that was negative. Okay, it says the first line of both poems will be the denotation. The first poem will have a negative connotation. The second poem will have a positive connotation, and each one needs to be at least 6 lines long to total 12 lines between the 2. Right now, you will type your poem up here above the instructions so that we can, it just makes it easier for your teacher to grade it and see it right when we open the document because we have to open so many. So if you have questions about anything from the lesson today or the assignment 16.1 or 16.2, please let your teacher know. And please have these done on time so that they can be turned in and graded in a timely manner.